everybody, I'm home. Did you miss me? Of course you didn't. You don't even know who I am. So let's fix that. Hi, my name is Nikita. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things history while I do my makeup. Now, I'm not a historian or a makeup artist, but this is just, a way that I found to combine my two favorite hobbies together. So if you like history and or makeup, I suggest you like, comment, and subscribe because I post videos every week. Well, at least I try to, It's not easy, you try it. Have you ever heard of Cleopatra? Yes, I know you have. I'm not calling you dumb, but I feel like you're thinking of the famous Cleopatra. The one that was involved with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. The one we can't seem to find. Yeah, I'm not talking about that one. What if I told you that she was actually Cleopatra VII? And that there were 6 other Cleopatras before her? Did you know that? Because I didn't. I was shocked. Oh my God. So today I decided to talk about every single one of them. I mean it. Every single one of them. We're gonna talk and we're gonna discuss about this because if I'm gonna be shocked, you're gonna be shocked too, okay? So grab your popcorn or whatever you like to eat and let's get started. So let's start with the OG Cleopatra, the very first Cleopatra. She was called Cleopatra I of Syria, and she was the first ever to be named Cleopatra to rule Egypt. Listen, babe, I have no drawings, no pictures, absolutely nothing to show you, okay? Just my words. And I hope that's enough for you. Cleopatra I was born into the powerful Seleucid dynasty. She was the daughter of Antiochus III the Great and Laodice III. I'm just gonna move this back here because I can't focus. As part of a political peace treaty, she was married off to Pharaoh Ptolemy V. Okay, and at a very young age, she became the queen of Egypt. But unlike most wives, Cleopatra I actually had real power, okay? She wasn't just, a trophy wife and, just there to give babies. Like, no, this woman actually had some power. And after her husband Ptolemy V died, she ruled Egypt as regent for her son, Ptolemy VI. Ugh, that woman, she's just, mwah. She was the first Ptolemaic queen to rule in her own right. I don't know, I feel like it's in their DNA, right? Like, Cleopatras are just badass queens. Ugh, love to see that. I feel like they all got it from her, the badass energy from her, yes. Unfortunately, because it happens, Cleopatra I died, and after her death, things started becoming a bit messy. And the reason why I say that is because if you think family drama is messy nowadays, just wait until you hear about Cleopatra II and Cleopatra III. A mother and a daughter that spent years at war with each other. And when I mean, it's not like, mother-daughter arguments like, oh no, I wanted the pink flower and you, like, no. This is like, I'm going to kill you bad, It's actual war against both of them. So we're gonna start with Cleopatra II. Let me just give you a bit of a background on her, okay? Cleopatra II was the daughter of Ptolemy V and Cleopatra I. Keep that in mind, okay? Cleopatra II married her own brother, Ptolemy VI Philomentor. That was his full name. Ptolemy VI Philomentor. So Cleopatra II married her brother. I know, it was normal back then, okay? I know, it's giving Sweet Home Alabama, but it was normal back then, trust me. And for a while, it worked, Ptolemy VI Philomentor and Cleopatra II, they were doing just fine, but Ptolemy VI ended up dying. And since the pharaoh died, there needs to be a second one to replace him, which brings us to her second husband, Ptolemy VIII Euergetes. So yes, she marries her other brother, Ptolemy VIII Euergetes. But here's the catch. Cleopatra II literally hated her brother. And I know hate is a strong word, which is why I'm using it. And once you understand why she hated him, you can't really blame her. I mean, I would hate him too. It's said that Euergetes, or like Ptolemy VIII, he was very violent and cruel, and he even killed his own nephew, Cleopatra II's son. Just to avoid him getting to the power and just avoid any rivalry, he went and killed his nephew. Why? For what? I mean, I'm guessing, yeah, back then it was normal, but it's still cruel and violent. It doesn't matter how you look at it. Cleopatra II's marriage to her brother Euergetes, I'm just gonna call him Euergetes, okay? But just keep in mind, he is Ptolemy VIII, okay? Marriage to her brother Euergetes was strictly political. There was no romance. There was just nothing going on in there because she didn't want to marry him in the first place. She didn't want to marry him, and he basically, or literally, forced her into getting married with him. He's like, listen, babe, you get married with me or you die. Choose wisely. The choice is yours, you know, no pressure. Oh my God, I would hate him too. Listen, it gets even worse, okay? So he forced her to get married with him, right? She's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna get married with you, whatever. You know, I have no choice. So she gets married with him. And then once they're married, he becomes a co-ruler, you know? And then he turns around and marries Cleopatra II's daughter, his niece. He turns around and marries his niece when he already married his sister. I just feel like there was no need for that. There was no need. Like, why would you force her to marry you and then just turn around and marry her daughter? Why didn't you just go for the daughter in the first place? I don't even, you know what? This is where the drama begins. Once Euergetes married his niece, Cleopatra III, we're already talking about Cleopatra III, okay? We haven't even finished with Cleopatra II, but pay attention. Once he marries his niece, Cleopatra III, all hell breaks loose, okay? Cleopatra II was pissed. She was angry, and rightfully so. She felt like she was betrayed, she was backstabbed, and it also kind of looked like her daughter was in on it. Like Cleopatra III, she was in on it. And I was shocked. I was shocked when I heard about this. Well, not heard, but when I was reading about this, because it's like, you would think that, okay, you know, Cleopatra III was the victim. I mean, like, her uncle is over here marrying her, like, poor kid. No. Cleopatra III was just as ruthless and cruel as the rest of them, okay? She was not the victim. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say she was still a victim because it's like, your uncle is marrying you. Anyways, back to Cleopatra II. She felt betrayed by both her husband and her daughter. And when she found out about that, she crashed out. She got so angry that she tried to kick both of them, her daughter and her husband, out of power and for her to become the sole ruler of Egypt. And for a while, it worked. But after some time went by, this started a whole civil war, okay? Like, I mean, of course they weren't happy that Cleopatra II kicked them out of power. Who does she think she is? You know? Now, her kicking them both out of power led to a massive civil war. On one side, it was Euergetes and Cleopatra III, and then on the other side, it was Cleopatra II and her supporters. Listen, the war was ugly, okay? Ugly. So for a while, since Cleopatra II had public support, she was able to hold Alexandria for a long time. But Euergetes, her brother, he retaliated by murdering her son and cutting him into pieces and sending his body parts to her on her birthday. I mean, he just keeps getting worse. Like, what kind of wicked man is this? After that event, and after Cleopatra literally receiving her son's body parts on her birthday, she decided to flee the country and went back to Syria, her mother's hometown. I'm guessing she went there possibly to regroup her forces or just, you know, stay alive. Apparently that wasn't necessary because somehow they patched things up. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know why, but yeah, they patched things up, and then Cleopatra II was able to come back to Egypt, and then the three of them were able to rule Egypt as a trio. I can imagine those royal dinners had to be awkward. Just, you know, like a couple seconds ago, y'all were just trying to kill each other and rip each other's heads apart, and now you're just sitting at the dinner table, just looking at each other like, will you try to murder me tonight? And as you would expect, that trio dynamic didn't last long. Because trios don't last long. I'm trauma dumping again. But yeah, trios never last. Listen to me, babes. Eventually, I guess Cleopatra III got tired of sharing, and she eventually pushed her own sons into power, continuing the family's long tradition of scheming and betrayal. Good job, Cleopatra III. Good job. And as expected, because it happens for everyone eventually, Ptolemy VIII finally died. Thank God, he was such an evil man. Oh my God. And Cleopatra II as well, she died. And as expected, Cleopatra III became Queen of Egypt and started ruling alongside her son. And you would think that's it, everything's fine and they all lived happily ever after. No, because guess what? Her son eventually had her killed. Yeah. Talk about karma. Like, what is even going on with this family? Oh my gosh. Do you guys not know anything about loyalty? Is that not in y'all's vocabulary? What is going on? Ugh. Wait, I was thinking, for her to rule alongside her son, did she have to marry her son? Or was it just like, oh, mother and son? I don't know. But anyways, yeah. Cleopatra III's son ended up killing her. Cool. We're moving on. At this point, a bunch of Cleopatras are just popping left and right, okay? And that brings us to Cleopatra IV and the V. Shall we enter? Honestly, the story of Cleopatra IV is kind of like weird, but at the same time, it's like so sad. Like, it's so sad. You know what? Let me get into it. So, Cleopatra IV is said to be the daughter of Ptolemy VIII, Euergetes, the evil, wicked man, and his wife, Cleopatra III. So Cleopatra IV was a daughter of Cleopatra III. So Cleopatra IV ended up marrying her brother, Ptolemy IX. It's normal, right? Keep it in the family. And everything was fine. They were married, they liked each other, they were happy. But Cleopatra III, their mom, was not. She was not happy with this union, okay? So she was like, no, stop that right there. I don't like it. And she forced them to separate their union, or I guess you could call it a divorce. I don't know if that existed back then. I'm pretty sure it didn't, but she forced them to just get away from each other. No. And I'm assuming this happened before she died, or she was murdered by her son. I'm wondering if this is why he had her murdered. Maybe. Maybe. Okay, so back to the story. Cleopatra III, she didn't like the union between Ptolemy IX and Cleopatra IV. So she replaced Cleopatra IV with her sister, Cleopatra Selene I. She made two sisters switch and marry the same brother. And after that, she exiled Cleopatra IV. I don't know what problem was going on around there. Why did she hate her so much? What was going on? What did Cleopatra IV do? Oh my gosh. After being cast away by her mother, Cleopatra IV ended up marrying Antiochus IX. Keep that in mind, okay? We'll be back. So Cleopatra IV's husband, Antiochus IX, was actually a rival claimant to the Seleucid dynasty throne back home in Syria. People are saying that this move was probably done out of revenge and political ambition. Can you blame him? Cleopatra IV supported her husband Antiochus IX in the civil war against his half-brother Antiochus VIII. Okay, so they were both rivals, two brothers, to see who's gonna win the Seleucid throne. You're gonna be mind blown right now, because how do they just keep doing this? I don't even know. But anyways, so two half-brothers married two sisters. And now they're at war against each other, is what I'm trying to say. So on one hand, we had Cleopatra IV and her husband Antiochus IX. And then on the other hand, we had his half-brother Antiochus VIII and his wife Cleopatra Tryphaena. Now, Cleopatra Tryphaena was Cleopatra IV's sister. And let me tell you, these two sisters hated each other as much as these two brothers hated each other. So it's like, oh my God, it's like sibling rivalry. It was so bad. It made the war even worse because they hated each other. And I'm just like, how do these siblings get to a point where they hate each other? What was going on? Well, you know? So they're at war, you know, they're going back and forth. I don't know. This whole thing is giving me serious Game of Thrones vibes. Right? Now, Cleopatra Tryphaena, she hated her sister so much that when she found out that her sister was actually taking cover or like a refuge in a temple, she was like, she's in a temple. We got her. We can kill her. We can freaking kill her. And her husband, Antiochus VIII, was like, listen, bro, you gotta chill. It's your sister. And he also warned her. He was like, listen, you can't kill people in a temple. Like, that's not okay. That's wrong. It goes against the laws. And she didn't listen. She went behind her husband's back and like ordered for her sister, Cleopatra IV, to be murdered in the temple. Now, back then, doing this was absolutely not okay. It was bad. Legend says that this act of sacrilege could have led to Cleopatra Tryphaena's death shortly after. Karma? Anyone? I think so, babe. I think so. Ordering for someone to be murdered in a temple? You do not play around with temples. You don't. Now that we're done with Cleopatra IV's story, I mean, she got killed by her own sister, and her husband, I don't know what happened to him. I'm assuming he got killed by his brother as well, his half-brother, if you will. We're gonna move on to Cleopatra V Tryphaena, and not to be confused with Cleopatra Tryphaena, the sister of Cleopatra IV. No, there was another Cleopatra Tryphaena. I know it's easy to get confused, but most Cleopatras back then were actually called Tryphaena because it kind of means dainty, luxurious. So it's just like a, yeah. Like I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah, they're not the same. Cleopatra Tryphaena and Cleopatra V Tryphaena are not the same person, okay? Stay with me. For us to not get confused, I'm just gonna refer to her as Cleopatra V. That way it's easier. I mean, that's what she was, the fifth. Cleopatra V was actually believed to be the wife of Ptolemy XII. And Ptolemy XII is actually the father of Cleopatra VII. Cleopatra VII is the Cleopatra that we all know and love, yet we still can't find. Yeah, Ptolemy XII, that was her daddy. Since Ptolemy XII was considered to be Cleopatra VII's father, historians believe that Cleopatra V might have been Cleopatra VII's mom, but historians aren't quite sure. They're not 100% sure. Why? Because there's not as much documentation on Cleopatra V's life. We barely know anything about her. It was like she was a ghost queen. Like, she's here and there, but you can't really tell. Some records in history suggest that she might have ruled alongside Ptolemy XII for a brief amount of time, briefly appearing in historical inscriptions as queen and sister, which was a royal phrase used for royal wives, especially if they were siblings. Although we do have some of those records, after the year 69 BCE, Cleopatra IV completely vanishes from records. Nowhere to be found. And this is why I kind of call her the ghost queen, because it's like, girl, where did you go? Where are you? What happened? Now, some historians believe that she might have died of natural causes, or maybe even murdered just to make space for another queen, as they normally did back then, or just in that specific family, the Ptolemaic family, because from all the research I've done, all they do is betray each other, kill each other, marry each other. Now here's where things get a bit weird. Some historians are saying that she might have reappeared as Cleopatra VI. They're saying that Cleopatra V might also be Cleopatra VI, which leads us to the story of Cleopatra VI. Now, just like Cleopatra V, Cleopatra VI is a historical enigma. We have no idea who she was, or like, girl, what was going on? Some ancient historians like Porphyry or Roman sources do mention Cleopatra VI, but maybe they had her confused with Cleopatra V, or maybe she might have been a daughter of Ptolemy XII. Like, we have no idea. There's there's not enough documentation on her life for us to be completely sure that, okay, like this is who she was and, this is what happened. We don't know. Now, what we do know is that in 58 BCE, Ptolemy the 12th was expelled from Egypt and went to Rome. Now, during this time, while he was gone, it is believed that Cleopatra VI, maybe his daughter or his wife, might have ruled Egypt alongside Berenice IV, which was one of his other daughters. Again, we have no idea. But if she did exist, it is likely that she probably died or was disposed of when Ptolemy XII returned to Egypt with Roman support and violently reclaimed the Egyptian throne, executing Berenice IV, his daughter, and possibly anyone else that was around, which might have been Cleopatra VI, but we have no idea. I mean, what is wrong with this family? A father killing his daughter for a throne. I don't get it. And that's pretty much all the information that I can give you about Cleopatra VI, which kind of makes me sad because it's like, I wish I had more. I mean, I wish I knew more. I wish history knew more. Those damn books that they burned in the Library of Alexandria, I bet they had some more information about who she was. If only they never burnt that library. I want to try to do a smoky eye today, but I've never done one before. So today will be my first time and you can watch me fail miserably. We're going to be working with the black one and the brown one. These two right here. I don't even know where to start for this. Anyways, with no other information on Cleopatra VI, it leads us to the last Cleopatra, the one we all know and love, Cleopatra VII. Cleopatra VII was born in Alexandria, Egypt in 51 BCE. She was known for her intelligence, political savvy, and multilingual abilities, reportedly speaking about 9 languages. Girl, I only speak 4 languages and I'm already like, my brain, every single time I have to talk to someone, it goes through like every single language I know to find one word to make a sentence. Like I have to like pause and be like, and then say the word because I'm like going through all the languages in my brain. Imagine 9. Oh my God. Apart from her knowing 9 languages, one of those languages that she spoke was Egyptian. And that was actually interesting because none of her predecessors even bothered to learn the language. They didn't bother to learn Egyptian. She was the only one that actually spoke Egyptian. You go, girl. You go. For a small period of time, she co-ruled with her father Ptolemy XII, and then after that with her brother Ptolemy XIII, and then Ptolemy XIV, until she finally got the chance to rule on her own. It is said that she styled herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis. Oh my God, this is hell. This is hell. What the hell? Do I look smoked out yet? I just poked my eye for you guys. I did a wing, you guys. I'll be back. Let me go do the other. Unfortunately for Cleopatra, her reign coincided with the turmoil that the Roman Republic was in at the moment. So to secure her power, she had to form strategic alliances and romantic relationship with powerful Roman leaders. She famously allied with Julius Caesar and she had a son with him, but unfortunately he ended up dying, assassinated by his own people. It be your own people for real. But anyways, she ended up making an alliance with Mark Antony and then ended up having 3 kids with him. And then after that, they got into conflict with this man called Octavian, who would in the future be known as Emperor Augustus. Now, Octavian, or Emperor Augustus, if you will, saw Cleopatra and Mark Antony as rivals, as enemies, as a threat. And in the decisive battle of Actium that happened in 31 BCE, Mark Antony and Cleopatra's forces were defeated. Ugh, my eye. Does it look smoky? I think it looks smoky. Right? I feel like I'm gonna end up with a black eye. Like I got punched or something. Sorry, I got distracted. But anyways, when Mark Antony and Cleopatra saw that they got defeated or like they were getting defeated, they decided to run back to Egypt. Unfortunately, that's where Mark Antony decided to unalive himself after he heard false news of Cleopatra's death, Who would do that? Who gives people false news? What? Anyways, poor Mark Anthony, you know? Ugh. And obviously, news got back to Cleopatra and she followed shortly after. According to legend, she allowed a venomous, poisonous snake to bite her. But historians suspect it was more like poison or another method. I don't know why. What's wrong with the snake theory? You know? It could have been a snake. You don't know. Unfortunately, with Cleopatra's death, Egypt became a Roman province. I'm gonna add some glitter just for fun. I think I did a great job. For my first time, absolutely. I don't care if it doesn't look smoky to you, it looks smoky to me, okay? Cleopatra is remembered as a symbol of female empowerment. I mean, she was amazing. Hello? Cleopatra VII's life inspired countless works of art, literature, and film, including Shakespeare's tragedy Antony and Cleopatra and the 1963 movie starring Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, countless documentaries and even Halloween costumes. So there you have it, my friends. Cleopatra VII wasn't the first Cleopatra. Sorry, I had to finish my makeup, but Cleopatra wasn't the only Cleopatra in history. There were actually 7 of them, which means she came from a long line of powerful women and maybe a little dramatic and vicious, you know, considering the things that we just learned about. And yeah, my friends, that was the story of all the Cleopatras that came before Cleopatra VII. Now that we're done with the video, I would love to ask you a couple questions. Which Cleopatra was your favorite and which one did you think had the most interesting story? For me personally, I think it was Cleopatra II and III. Like those two, like that story was just, I just couldn't understand it. I feel like after Cleopatra I, everything was just so messy. Like, oh my gosh. And another question is, what do you think happened to Cleopatra V and Cleopatra VI? Do you think Cleopatra VI actually existed? Or do you think Cleopatra V was actually Cleopatra VI? Let me know. I would love to know. Please leave your comments down below so I can read them. And now that we're done with that, next week we're gonna be talking about Ivan the Great. Me personally, I call him the biggest crash out in history because he was a crash out. Like, honestly, literally, he was a crash out. And I think maybe it had something to do with the way he was raised and just the way he grew up in general. But that will be for you to decide next week when we talk about him. With that being said, if you enjoyed this video and stayed till the end, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I also wanted to say thank you so much for staying with me and learning about the 7 different Cleopatras. I wish you a wonderful day, stay safe, and until next time, bye!